Hi everyone, it's Min and I'm making a YouTube video, which is kind of strange because I've never made a YouTube video before and I never thought I would make a YouTube video. But it's Eating Disorders Awareness Week, and if you've been following Cloud and Victory for a while, you know that maybe you know my story with how eating this ballet helped me recover from an eating disorder, and how every year during about this time I try to make a post about recovery or something encouraging to help other people struggling with eating disorders as well, because I feel like there's not enough information out there about this. And this year I wasn't quite sure what to do, so I thought what might be helpful would be to do a video talking about my experience with an eating disorder and how recovery was for me, what worked for me in recovery, I guess, and what I wish I'd done. I was a bit hesitant to do this. I thought about it for a long time because, first of all, I don't know who wants to see me talking in a video. I'm also hesitant to talk about it too much because I feel like, well, first, I don't know who wants to hear the story again, and second of all, I don't really want to hear myself talking about it again too much. You know, there's so much more to me than just the fact that I had this eating disorder, even though, you know, it played a very important part in my my life. But at the same time, you know, I still feel like there's just not that much information out there about eating disorder recovery, and I feel like it's not talked about enough, especially in the dance world. So here I am in front of the camera, talking in front of it, and I hope that if any of you are struggling, you will find it useful. I'm not a qualified medical professional in any sense of the word. I'm just talking about my experience and what worked for me. Even though I come to this topic and my experience with eating disorder was not from the place of being a professional or even a pre-professional dancer. I didn't even start ballet until I was much older and somewhere in my recovery. I think a lot of the traits that dancers possess are traits that I have as well, and that's why I can relate to a lot of my dancer friends. Maybe let's start off a bit with my journey and how I ended up having an eating disorder, which in my case I was diagnosed with atypical anorexia. So when I was growing up, I loved food a lot and I didn't exercise. It just wasn't, you know, food for me was just something to be enjoyed and sometimes enjoyed a lot, and I never really exercised because I was a big introvert, and so the idea of getting into team sports and things was kind of a bit scary for me, or even individual sports, because I didn't want to be in the spotlight, and with team sports I just didn't want to be in a thing where I could potentially let my team down. I was never like a sporty or a very outgoing individual. I was kind of this like short, quiet, plump, introverted, like nerdy kid. I felt like I had no control over the direction of my life at all, and it was only when I got out of the Singapore education system, which wasn't working for me, and went to Australia to study, that I suddenly felt like my academics was my academics was part of my responsibility, and that's when I felt like I had some control over my life. I went to pre-university in Australia, and then I made it to Melbourne University to study law and political science, and it's one of the best universities in Australia, and so I felt a lot of pressure to, you know, do well and graduate and with good grades. I struggled a lot in Melbourne University at first, and it really affected my self-confidence. And then somewhere, probably in about my second year of like this 5-year double degree course, I kind of started to find my footing with law school especially, and that was also when I kind of started deciding to exercise and maybe get a bit healthier. I started going for slow jogs, and I started, you know, trying to eat more mindfully, as well as, you know, beginning to get the hang of studying as well. So I was getting fitter and my sort of grades were going up, and I kind of saw some sort of correlation between that. I felt like my grades had to keep going up, and I had to keep like eating healthier and exercising more, because I felt like this would all be part of almost like a redemption from being this like unfit, you know, unsporty, low achieving kid, to now being this, you know, kid who got good grades and who was well rounded in the sense that I wanted to, you know, get physical activity as well and be as well as be a responsible student. That was in my head the idea of what a good student was supposed to be. So I started calorie counting, and then I started adding more exercise slowly. At the worst of it, all I did was exercise and study. It went from a really innocuous, I'm gonna try and get fitter, and maybe my fitness will help me with my studies as well, and help me be a better person, and help me be this like well-rounded person who I think will make my parents proud, to falling so deep into the trap of feeling like if I didn't exercise as much as possible, and I didn't study as much as possible, and I didn't eat as much as possible, I was being ill-disciplined. My life became, well, I can tell you what my life was. It was eating like within that 1,000 to 1,200, 1,400 calorie threshold, exercising that 2 hours, and if I could walk more between that, that was great. And when I wasn't doing that, I was in school studying from, say, I think it was like 10 a.m. to at least 7 p.m. a day, sometimes until midnight when the school library closed. I didn't know I had an eating disorder, because if you had asked anybody beforehand, like, I would have been the last person to get anorexia, because I just loved food and I was never really concerned with how I looked. It just only took like a year for me to spiral downwards to a point where I was just tired all the time. It hurt for me to get up from my chair even. I was that tired. It hurt for me to get up from my chair. It was a struggle for me to get out of bed every morning. I was cold all the time. I was thirsty all the time, and I would just drink so much water because I was so hungry all the time, and I just needed something to fill me up, and I was just always thinking about food. I would walk past food and smell it, just so I could just smell the thing that I couldn't eat, but I just needed to be around it because I was so hungry. Oh, the whole time I felt like my brain was like in a fog. I couldn't concentrate very well. I felt like, you know, this had to be my life. Like, this was the only way to live my life if I was ever going to accomplish anything. I had just conditioned myself to think that way. To me, it was about control, and having, from this place of deep insecurity and deep self-loathing, needing to have control over my life and to be disciplined. And part of being disciplined was like withholding this one thing I really enjoyed, which was food. I was also in tandem with that, and I think this is very normal for people with anorexia. I became very, very depressed. I became suicidal as well. Because I think the thing that people don't realize with eating disorders is that it's not a problem in and of itself. It's actually just the tip of the iceberg to a lot of other problems underneath, which had stemmed from, you know, past experiences growing up, as well as my personality. When I went back, by the end of the year, when I finished my second to last school year, I went back. My family could see I had a problem, but they thought it was depression. We didn't know it was an eating disorder, even though they saw I lost weight. It was just became like a slow realization over the months of having during my school break that I did have a problem. I remember the turning point was me sitting outside my window, sitting on my windowsill at like past midnight or something, and thinking to myself, I just want to die. Like, I don't necessarily want to commit suicide, but I want to die because my life is so miserable. Like, I'm not happy, and I'm hungry, and I'm miserable, and I'm tired, and I just didn't see anything about, and I just looked into my future, and I was like, in order to be an accomplished person, this is what my life is going to be. This is just how my life is going to be. And it was just so bleak. And I was thinking, I just want to die. I remember like praying, thinking, God, can you just, I don't want to commit suicide, but can you just take me now and just end my life, because it's just not worth living. And then that was when I was faced with two choices, which was either I end it now, or I figure out a way how to get my life back and to enjoy it. And I chose the latter, which was I decided I wanted to get my life back. I wanted to enjoy my life again. and that was kind of where my journey into recovery started. Getting started on recovery took longer than expected because I was not properly diagnosed. There's a criteria by which doctors diagnose eating disorders like restrictive eating, anorexia or binge eating, and other kinds of eating disorders. But the criteria for anorexia and even atypical anorexia is quite narrow, so I was not actually properly diagnosed at first because I was not underweight according to the BMI, even though I hadn't had my period for 6 months and I was clearly, for my body, very undernourished. And I was also not fixated on my body image. Like, I'm not saying I don't think that I looked fantastic, but I could tell that I looked very thin, and I was not fixated on getting any part of my body thinner. And so because of that, I wasn't diagnosed properly, and when I first went to an eating disorder clinic, they put me on a maintenance diet, which is just keep eating how you're eating first and we'll see how it goes. Let me tell you, being told when you're hungry and you want to recover that you should just maintain your 1,200 calories is not helpful at all. It took me losing even more weight before I got put on a proper refeeding plan. And getting that permission I needed to eat and hearing those words, you have atypical anorexia. Like, that's what I needed to hear, and I needed the confirmation that I had that problem and to have that permission to eat and start recovery, because that's how little I trusted myself. I think the most important thing for me that helped me to recover, even though it was a long and traumatic and difficult process that was almost harder than actually having anorexia itself, was the idea that I had to recover for myself. I've had friends who have also struggled with anorexia, and our reasons for recovering are all different. For me, it was just the belief that I really wanted to figure out how to enjoy my life again, and it was just something that I held on to very much. So people all around you can do everything to tell you have this problem and do everything for you, but if I didn't find a way and a reason to recover, if I didn't want to recover, then there was no way I would have been able to like go on this journey. Like, I had to be ready to recover in order to recover, and I think it's very important. Like, I couldn't do it for anybody else. I had to do it for myself. Recovery is so hard and so traumatic in so many ways. Like, you feel so alone in your struggles all the time because you just want somebody else to understand. I'm just thinking about how much I hate myself. I'm dealing with all this guilt about this ill discipline. I can't comprehend how come something that's supposed to be helping me, i.e. eating more and gaining weight, makes you feel so lousy, because there's this other side of my brain that tells me that I'm just doing something, I'm just doing my body a huge disservice. And coupled with the severe depression I was feeling, there were some times where I did want to just end it all. I did seriously contemplate suicide at times, and at the times where I couldn't find it in me to go on, what really helped me was the love shown by other people and having a support system, which in my case was my family. But at the same time, my family were my triggers, because a big reason why I fell into this eating disorder was because I was trying so hard to be this perfect person I thought my parents wanted me to be, and at the same time they were the people who were very much involved in my recovery and helping me through this. And so when we would fight or get into arguments with my parents, it was just like a big trigger that had me seriously contemplating suicide. And what helped me not to was actually my dog. My dog Chips, she was a big part of helping me when I couldn't find any reason to keep going on. Like, I would just think to myself, I can't commit suicide because I would traumatize my dog, and my dog just loved me so much and so unconditionally. I didn't get into fights with my dog when I literally had nothing else to live for, because maybe I was fighting with my parents, and I convinced myself that it would be better to just end my life than to burden my family with me, this like worthless person who was just like imposing on them and creating so much grief in their life because I had fallen into this. I just felt like maybe my family would be better off if I just killed myself. The one thing that stopped me and kept me from going on was really my dog, and the fact that, you know, there was no question of whether she loved me, and there was no question of whether she was loyal to me. There was no conditions attached to her affection. I could just pick her up and hug her whenever I wanted to, and she was never going to say no. Having my dog was so helpful in so many ways to me. Aren't you a special girl? Yes, you are. Another thing that helped me was to use like the traits that made me fall into an eating disorder to help me get out of it. When you have an eating disorder, you're thinking it's very black and white. Food bad, exercise more good. I kind of used that black and white thinking to help me get better. I put purging into my bad box of like behaviors that you do that will make you get worse. So even though I would feel this really strong urge to like, sometimes after I eat, to just want to get just everything out, the food and my insides and just my whole being, I just wanted it to just come out because I just hated myself so much and I felt like I was just doing something terrible to myself. I would tell myself, no, you can't. Because if you purge, I refuse to let myself purge, because in my mind, if you purge, that means you're getting worse. And if you're getting worse, like game over. To me, that was the behavior that if I actually did or give in to, would just mean that I would never be able to recover. That was just how it was in my head. Like if you purge, game over, you're never going to recover because you're falling down another deep rabbit hole. Even though it probably wouldn't have been true, that was the sort of thing that I used to help myself get better, by turning my black and white, good, bad, eating disorder thinking into, and channeling it towards recovery by making sure that certain behaviors were just off limits. When I was recovering and how I started to be able to eat again and have a bit more of a normal relationship with food was to not restrict anything, which is to say not restrict food groups and just eat everything. And I think that was, I wouldn't say easier for me, but I was able to do that because when I started eating, I was so hungry. I just discovered even more hunger than I felt before, because sometimes it was like I was hungry and I was always thinking about food, but like when you start eating again, it's a whole different kind, like it's a whole new frontier of hunger, because your body suddenly realizes that I'm getting nutrients and I just need to get as much of them and hold on to as much of them as possible. And so you're just always massively hungry in so many different ways. Like I would eat a meal. I was eating 6 meals a day, which was like 3, like lunch, breakfast, lunch and dinner, and then tea, and then supper. And I can tell you for like the first couple of months, I would eat breakfast and then I would just be counting down to the next meal. Like when can I eat again, when can I eat again, when can I eat again. I just wanted to eat, but I couldn't eat when I wanted to because I felt like I had to follow the schedule. Like I still had to have some control. I couldn't be ill-disciplined and just like eat intuitively, even though I think that would probably have been very helpful as well. It was very helpful with me that I didn't restrict and say, oh, if I want to recover, I have to recover in like the cleanest or healthiest way possible, even though I don't really believe that's really such a thing. So I think for me it was really helpful that I didn't adopt like a restrictive eating plan, which is to say there was no food for me that was off the limits, except for foods I didn't like I don't really like cheese. I only eat cheese when it's on pizza. One thing that I will say I wish I had done more in my recovery was rest. I really held on to the need to exercise. Like I remember my doctor and my parents were like, why don't you just like, all I used to do was run. And they were like, why don't you just like not run for like 2 weeks? And I was like, no, I can't. There's a part of me that thought if I exercise, then I burn more calories, and I burn more calories and I can eat more. But it was also, again, comes back to the fear of ill-discipline, which is that if I stop exercising, I'll never get the discipline to pick it up again, and I'm gonna like lose on my fitness. If I had just given myself the permission to rest for like 3 months, I think I would have recovered so much faster, because then my body would have, you know, had the time to stop stressing itself out with all this physical activity and just been able to like take in the food and use all the nutrients to repair myself. It's so weird because I think of exercise as a discipline, but when you're recovering, like making sure to eat and making sure to rest, it's actually the most, it takes a lot of discipline to do that and to do this service to yourself when your brain is telling you you're actually doing a disservice. When your brain is lying to you and saying that this is a disservice, it actually takes a lot of discipline to say no, I know this is good for me, I'm going to eat and I'm going to rest. The guilt of, you know, not exercising, it's definitely a journey, and it's something that I've been working on for years, just being more flexible with my exercise. And you know, I remember before that, like if I missed like a ballet class or gymnastics class, I would just like, or I was just not in time for class, I would just like freak out, be like, no, I have to do this, I have to do this. And you know, I've slowly learned different things, like how to be more flexible, like okay, if there's no class today, I can do this, I can do this, I can do that, I can do something else. And also just learning that sometimes you have to take it easy, even if you don't rest completely, maybe because I'm not comfortable with that, you know, I can take it easier. Say in a gymnastics class, but I'm just not feeling like I have a lot of energy or I'm really tired, I can take it easy. I don't have to like push myself that hard. I can, you know, maybe do a bit less, and then when I feel better, do a bit more. And also being disciplined about my rest days as well. I still have trouble with that, like with work at Cloud and Victory as well. I find it very difficult to take rest days. Like there's a lot of guilt there, and it just comes from the guilt of not trusting myself and being ill-disciplined, and the fear of being ill-disciplined, which is really something that's very hard for me to overcome. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that I'm working on now, which is to be kind to myself, because it's so much easier for me to be kind to other people and to want to do good by other people and for other people, because that's how I ended up with my eating disorder, because I just wanted to do good by my parents. I wasn't studying for myself, I wasn't getting fit almost for myself, I was doing it a lot because I thought it would make my parents happy. And it's just so much easier for me to do something to make somebody else happy, like call a friend and tell a friend I'll be there for them, you know, buy somebody a present. But if somebody gives me praise or if somebody does something nice for me, like, why are people being nice to me? Like, it's the belief that I don't deserve this kindness, I'm not worthy of it. And that's honestly the biggest part of recovery, is just learning to love yourself and learning to be kind to yourself. And even though I'm recovered and I've considered myself to be recovered for a very long time, you know, I still struggle with this. It's a journey in progress of just always learning and having to deliberately find ways to be kind to myself, to learn how to think positively about myself and not beat myself up all the time. I still feel food guilt sometimes, you know, that sort of food guilt and the sort of guilt about everything. Oh, I didn't work hard enough, I didn't eat healthy enough, or I ate too much, I didn't exercise enough. You know, all that sort of guilt. Because I'm such a perfectionist, it's very hard not to have all these negative thoughts. But I think what I've learned in trying to be kind to myself is how to counteract these thoughts. For example, I am back to my pre-eating disorder weight, which is 55 kilos. And when I was recovering, it was like my scary weight, because pre-eating disorder me was like the plump, lazy, nerdy couch potato. So when I recently discovered I was at this weight again, I didn't really feel that good about myself. Like, why did I put on weight? You know, because I'm learning to try to be kinder to myself and to accept myself and to trust myself. There's also this other part of me when I had these, like, disordered thoughts when I found out my weight, that told myself, no, wait, like, I try to eat like a balanced diet and I try to eat healthy. A lot of the time I am keeping very fit. There's nothing I can do in terms of my diet and exercise to like lose that weight without doing my body and my mental health a big disservice. And also, I know a lot of this weight that I am now is not the same. Like, even though I'm the same weight, I'm not the same person, because a lot of this weight now is muscle, because I'm so active. And yeah, I could be thinner if I didn't do so much gymnastics and I didn't build up so much muscle, yeah, then I could be thinner and I would probably weigh less. But I enjoy this sport that I'm doing. I enjoy that it challenges me so much. So do I want to give that up just for a number on the scale? No, I don't. But I still do feel guilty about eating, but I've learned by thinking positively and, you know, focusing on the positive parts about what I'm doing to myself, that I don't let these like guilty thoughts consume me. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I think not just anybody who has an eating disorder, but just anybody in general, I think the biggest thing that we can do to help ourselves is just to learn to be kind to ourselves, because it's only when you're kind to yourself that you can be kind to other people. Because I always thought that like to be recovered would be to be like how I was before, which was to be completely free with my eating and like not care about calories or not care about what I'm putting into my body and just eat whatever I want whenever I want. And that was the idea I had, like that I was so carefree. But honestly, I think who I am now is better, because now I make sure to be healthy, not just like physically with exercise and making sure I get like a balanced diet and to eat certain healthy foods, but also make room for things like pizza and, you know, cake. And you know, and I'm also healthier mentally, because having like I said, anorexia is just the tip of the iceberg of all issues, and because I've had to learn to confront these issues and work on them, I've been able to, you know, be more aware of who I am and to move past a lot of issues and to deal with a lot of the things that affected me a lot, as well as to cope with aspects of my personality, like I said, the perfectionism and the negativity and, you know, the anxiety, and just accept myself, not just accept that who I am is not going to be the same as who I was before, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because yeah, back then I was like really free with my eating, but it wasn't like I didn't have any eating issues. Like eating was a big part of my identity, because it was my way of saying I'm not going to be like the other people I know in my life who are really image obsessed with looking pretty and into makeup, and you know, I had so many issues of like insecurity and just not being happy with myself back then too. So it's not like, you know, so even though I'm never going to go back to the way I was before, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think like when you think about it, I feel like who I am is better now, because I'm learning to be kinder to myself. I'm learning how to take care of myself. I'm learning to have confidence and to do things that I would never be able to have been able to do if I didn't go through this journey and I didn't push myself and I didn't force myself to confront all these issues and work on myself. And I finally learned to accept that recovery isn't about being perfect. It helped me to let go of a lot. Because like nobody has a perfect relationship with their body, and nobody has a perfect relationship with food, and nobody has a perfect relationship with themselves. Like there are people who've never had eating disorder who also have, you know, issues with food. That's just normal. This is who I am, and if I don't learn to take care of myself and to accept myself for who I am, then I'm just never going to be happy. And again, why did I recover? Why did I want to recover? Because I wanted to learn how to enjoy myself. That's it. Isn't that right? That's it. I don't know if any of you found this video helpful. I hope somebody did. Like I said, I find it a very strange experience to be sitting in front of a camera and talking. I don't know who wants to listen to me, but I hope it was helpful. And if anybody wants me to talk about anything else, yes, feel free to let me know. All I want to do really, and what makes me happiest, is helping people and doing something positive. That's why I have an ethical ballet wear brand. And that's why, even though I'm technically supposed to be running a dancer business, part of it includes making funny ballet memes and talking about mental health issues. All I want to do is to do something positive for myself and for somebody else. And get to show off my dog as much as possible. Thanks guys. Bye.